you. Hi, my name is Ling, and I'm the financial advisor for the University of California, San Francisco. I'm very touched to be here because I'm looking at all these parents and students. By your being there, you're showing me and you're showing your child that you're really interested and you're really invested in having a child be in college. So thank you so much for being here at the end of probably a really busy day. So I hope that the information that I have available here will be helpful to you. And again, when I'm done, please, for the students to go to the computer lab, and at least one of you will be eligible for the $1,000 scholarship. That would be really great for your family, okay? So let's start with the PowerPoint. At the end of the presentation, I will be here to answer any questions that you might have, and I will not stop until I'm done with all your questions, okay? Okay, what is financial aid? Financial aid helps you pay for college education. The purpose of it is to help you successfully complete your education and career goals. The financial aid process can be complicated. That's why there are financial advisors to help you. And by the way, you should not have to pay for anybody to help you apply for financial aid. If you have any question, feel free to give your college advisor a ring or to drop by their office, or even when you're in the college, to drop by the financial aid office of your school, because they should be able to answer all your questions. Okay. Financial aid is really a measure of the parents' ability to pay for college. There's a separation between, there's a difference between what the parents are able and what the parents are willing to contribute. So year after year, we do have parents say, I earn X amount of money, however, I'm not able to pay for college. When that happens, I would strongly suggest that the parent or the student contact a financial advisor. That's because there might be situations in the family that prevent you from being able to contribute fully to your son or daughter's education. And the problem with the financial aid process is that when you complete a FAFSA, the government asks certain questions from you. For example, what is your income? How much tax you pay? What are your assets? There are a lot of things they do not ask you. For example, there might be expenses that you have, like medical expenses that you have to pay, or you might have to support other family who might not be here, they may be in another country, or there might be extenuating circumstances in the family. So it's really up to the parent and the student to approach their financial aid office of the school and say, okay, I completed my financial application, this is my expected parental contribution, however, I'm not able to pay that amount because X, Y, Z. In order to apply for financial aid, basically you should be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, and you have to have a high school diploma or CED. And for the students who are the undocumented students, we'll be talking about that a little bit later on in our discussion as well. Okay, types of financial aid. A lot of parents ask what kind of financial aid are available to the college students. Basically, there are 4 types. One is scholarship, and the other one is grant. Scholarship and grants, they are free money that you do not have to pay back. So what is the difference between the two? Scholarships, basically there are 2 types of scholarships. One is based on merit, the other one is based on financial need. There are also scholarships that are a combination. They look at the student's GPA, their test scores. They also look at the student's financial need as well. So it's a combination. Grants, however, is purely based on financial need. So grant is free money, but it's all based on the parent's income and asset as well as the student's income and asset. Work study. Work study is a really good thing to think about. Maybe in your second year or beyond, probably not the first year. That's because first year of college, you'll be adjusting to the college, you'll be studying, you have roommates, you have new friends to think about. So the first year of college might not be a really good idea to think about work study. However, beginning the second year or even the summer after the first year, that's the time to think about it. That's because work study is like a job. But instead of being paid by a private employer, you're really working for a nonprofit organization. A lot of times you could be working for the school. A lot of colleges actually hire work study students because of budget cuts. they would hire, instead of one person, a normal wage, they will hire work study, like they could hire like 3 work study students for the same budget. And for the student, it's a benefit too, because if you work outside and you work for a private company, then you have to work those hours. You might have finals, you might have midterms, you might have exams, projects to do, but you have a job, so you have to stick to the job. But a lot of times under the work-study payroll, the employer is under the nonprofit title, or the employer could be the school itself. So a lot of times these employers understand that you should have more flexible hours. For example, at UCSF, we offer work-study jobs in our own departments, and a lot of times the work-study job that we offer, we actually pay students a lot more than they were to get a private job outside on their own. Also, we have more flexible terms. We have students who work 8 hours one week, 12 hours another week, 40 hours a third week, or during the break time. We know that if they're studying, they should not be working. So it's a lot more flexible. And by the way, one other advantage of a work study is that if you work for an outside job and you earn money, that income could be hurting you in the next year when you reapply for financial aid, because the income that you work will be calculated as part of your expected family contribution. However, if you have a work-study job, 100% of that income is not counted as income at all when it comes to calculating your expected family contribution. So let's say you work at Target and you will earn $15,000. Well, and your friend has a work-study job and your friend earns $15,000 just like you for the same year. Well, guess what? When you reapply for financial aid next year, your job in the Target the government will calculate about $1,700 as your expected family contribution. So they're saying out of your $15,000 income, you should be able to contribute $1,700 of your cost of education in the upcoming year. However, your friend who has a work-study job and earns the same amount of money as you will have 0 student contribution. That's because under the law, work-study is not counted as income when it comes to computing your financial eligibility, okay? And then a lot of things, the other thing that's really important too is that think about how many people graduate each year from college. Among those, how many people would be getting a job? Work study gives you work experience, so that's really helpful. And for students who are thinking about getting a higher degree, like a master's degree, well, it would be helpful to have some experience so that when you pursue that degree or apply for graduate school, you could say, yes, I have a BA or BS in this degree, plus I have experience. A lot of professors hire work study students for research, so that's something really important to think about. Again, not so much the first year, but the second year and beyond, okay? And then the last thing is loans. We have students who say, are there loans available for me, even if my parents earn a lot of money? The answer is yes. That's because there are loans available to students who come from a relatively lower income family. However, there are loans available to students whose parents earn a lot of money as well. It's really up to the student to apply, up to the parent to apply, and then when the college gives you a financial aid package, you could say, okay, I accept this loan, I don't want to accept the other loan. There's nothing in the contract to say you have to accept everything. So you can really pick and choose. And we have parents who say, how about applying for private loans instead of federal loans? Well, that's really up to the parent. That's because there are a lot of private loans in the market. However, there are certain benefits with the federal loans that you have to understand. For example, there are loan repayment programs so that after the child graduates, you might be paying a lower payment based on the income that you earn. Also, there are loan repayment programs, loan forgiveness programs available to federal loans, but these programs are not available to private loans. So if You get any solicitation in the mail from credit card companies or private loan companies saying, you know, you're going to this college, we offer you this loan. Really think twice about accepting those loans. You should probably talk to a financial advisor first before you make that decision, okay? Next. Okay, a lot of people here are interested in applying for the Cal Grant and Pell Grant. We don't have the figures yet for next year. That's because the state was a state was just held last Thursday, so all the details are not trickled down to the universities yet. So what we have here are the 2012, 2013, that's the current year's amounts. The maximum Cal Grant A and B that students can get is up to $12,192 if they are going to attend a UC. And the maximum grant that students can apply for up to, under the Pell Grant program, which is a federal program, is $5,550. Again, this is this year's figures. We don't know next year's figures. So these are really popular grants. The Cal Grant A and B is through the state of California. It's only available to California residents and also only available if you are going to a California school. Does that mean you should not pursue Cal Grant if you're thinking about out-of-state school? The answer, I think, is no. I always tell parents and students, even if you're not interested in attending a California school, because you might be thinking about going to Boston or going to Seattle or Texas, who knows? You may come back later on. We do have students who go to an out-of-state university for 1 or 2 years and they decide to come back to the state of California. It's better to apply for the Cal Grant A or B right now. Even if you don't need it, who knows? You may need it later on if you decide to come back to a California college later on. But the Pell Grant is a federal grant, and that's universal. It's available anywhere in the United States. Any college that's accredited in the United States, if you're eligible, you can get the Pell Grant. Now, other than these two grants, a lot of parents say, is that it? Are there other funding available? The answer is yes. That's because each school, for example, each UC and each state U, they have their own grants. These are funding given by the federal government or the state government or private endowment given to the university. And when you apply for financial aid, then the information is given to the school, and the school decides based on your parent information, the family information, what kind of funding they should give you. And then after they send you a financial aid award letter, of course you want to accept the grants and scholarships, and then for the loans, you can pick and choose, okay? Now, so the total is $17,700 for the Pell Grant and the federal grant program. Now, that is if you're going to attend a UC school. Next. Back. Patrick? Back. Okay. I just wanted to point out something. If you're not going to a UC school, then what happens? If you're going to go to a state university, the maximum Pell Grant is about $6,000. So the maximum is $5,970 this year, about $6,000. And if you're going to a private college, then the maximum Pell Grant is $9,223. A lot of people ask why. If I'm going to a private college, that should be more expensive than a UC. Why am I eligible for a lower amount? I'm not getting $12,000. The reason is because Cal Grant A and B is targeted for public institutions. If you are going to a private institution, that's totally your prerogative. But because the nature of that grant is really targeted for public schools, that's why they give you a reduced amount. And by the way, does that mean your total package, if you were to go to a private school, will be a lot lower? I'm talking about total package. The answer is no. That's because we have some parents who are pleasantly surprised because when their son or daughter is going to a private school, they might end up getting more money and better money than if they were to go to a public school. That's because for a lot of private school, it's private. It's their money. They get donations, endowment from their alumni. They go. A lot of times, these private colleges are really donations to their school system. So don't be surprised if a student goes to a private school that costs a lot more, end up getting more financial aid. That's because that college has more financial aid in their cost, so they could give out to the student than a public school, okay? Okay, I talked about a little bit before about scholarships based on merit, not just income. I would recommend, if you want to research into private scholarships as well. There are private scholarships available. It could be through a church group, it could be through certain organizations. However, I would recommend that you do not pay for a college search. At this point of the year, some parents might receive solicitations in the mail saying, if you pay me $125, I will search for a college for your child. There is a lot of scam artists out there in the market, I have to tell you. We have parents who are really upset because they pay $125 and they get nothing in return, or they get a list. But the list that they get are really financial aid that's offered through the federal government. It's not through private companies. So I would just say, watch out for solicitation in the mail that says, pay me and I will find scholarships for you. There are a lot of scholarship search engines out there in the website that you can do it for free. For example, a really popular one is the FASTWeb, that's FASTWEB. I'm sure you could talk to your high school counselor as well, and to get a list of these private scholarship search engines. Okay. I talked about a little bit just now about loans. When you apply for financial aid, your college will offer you a financial aid package that includes federal loans. Now, again, as I mentioned, you may be solicited by companies that would give you private loans. It's really up to you to do some research into those loans to see if they are really better than the federal loans that are offered to you and your child. And really, you have to understand and you have to know your rights and responsibility when accepting the loan. That's because if you don't make the payment later on, it will really hurt your credit, and it will impact your chance of buying a house, buying a car in the future. Their wages can be taken away from you by IRS. And the important thing is that if you offer a loan, it has to be repaid with interest eventually. Okay, so be really, really careful about private loans that are in the market and compare them with the federal loans that are offered to you by the financial aid office of your school. Deadlines. As I talked a little bit earlier about, be aware of the deadline to apply for financial aid. All the UC schools and the state schools in California will have March 2nd as the deadline to apply for financial aid. That's because the Calgrant deadline is March 2nd, and they've never ever deviated that from in the last 10 years. However, if you are applying for a private college, be aware that the financial aid deadline may be a lot sooner. It could be February 1st. Or February 15th, I did a cash for college session about 2 years ago, and a parent asked me, I'm applying to USC, when is the deadline? I said tomorrow. So you have tonight to complete the application. So I would say pay attention to each school that you're applying to, especially if it's a private school. Make sure you meet the deadline. And by the way, within each school there are scholarships. I mentioned earlier about merit-based scholarships. A lot of these scholarships could have an earlier deadline. So even among UCs, I would recommend that you go to the website of each school that you're applying for, even the UCs, to look for their scholarship information, because some of them might have an earlier deadline than March the 2nd. Okay? And a lot of these scholarships may be based on the curriculum. For example, scholarships that are offered to engineering majors only, or scholarships offered to accounting majors only, and you have to apply on your own. You have to complete a separate application. You might have to attach your high school transcript. You might have to indicate your test score, your SAT or ACT scores, or you may end up be asked to submit a recommendation letter. Again, these scholarships, they are not subjected to the March 2nd deadline. Okay, next. Okay, FAFSA. Well, this is what you're going to be doing tonight. You're going to be completing a FAFSA. Before I go on, though, I have to caution that you do not ever go into the FAFSA.com website because that's a separate website. Guess what? That website is actually devised by a financial aid director of a UC school many, many years ago. And he established this company, FAFSA.com. And when you go in and you try to complete a FAFSA, they will have you pay to have it processed for you. So do not use FAFSA.com. You should always use the FAFSA.ed, which stands for education, .gov, which stands for government. That is the website that will process your information for free. Okay, when you complete a FAFSA, you will know that they ask for a lot of information from you. They ask about the students' demographics, selection of school, like which college do you want a copy of your information to go to, and they will ask about your dependency status. A lot of students here will be considered dependent students, obviously. And then they will be asking about parents' demographics, and the parents and the students' financial information, sometimes asset information as well. And then they will ask you to electronically sign and submit the form, and then they will send you a confirmation after that's done. Okay, I'm going to talk about a little bit of the details now. When you go into the FAFSA website, well, first of all, before you do the FAFSA, you should get an electronic PIN. Think about when you go to an ATM to withdraw money, you have to put in your 4-digit PIN number. It's the same thing with the FAFSA because you're completing online. You're not signing a form and sending it to the government. So what they do is that they ask you to go in and get a PIN number first. And how you do it is the student and one parent need to go in and complete certain information in the PIN number website before they give you the 4-digit PIN number. And once you get that, then you're able to complete the FAFSA. So it's a two-step process. The student and one parent go and get their PIN number, and then with the PIN number, they will complete the FAFSA. After they're done with the FAFSA, they use the PIN number as their electronic signature. When you complete the FAFSA, they'll be asking for your full legal name, your social security number, your date of birth, your gender, your mailing address, how long have you lived in the state of California, because that is to help establish your California residency. They ask you for your telephone number, your email address, your marital status, your citizenship status, and your driver's license number if you happen to have one. If you don't have one, that's okay. But if you do have one, they do ask for your driver's license. And then for male students who are between the age of 18 to 25, they will ask you to register with the Selective Service. A lot of parents in the past are a little bit worried about the last part about Selective Service. A lot of people ask me, does that mean my son will have to serve in the Army or Navy or Air Force, etc.? Well, I have worked in a financial aid office for 28 years already, okay? Not in any of those years have any students been drafted. What happens is that the government is saying, we're making our money available to you for college. In return, we expect you to be able to serve the government if you're called to do that. However, I will say that in the past 28 years I've worked in the financial aid field, everybody who's in the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, they are people who select to be joining our military. They're not drafted. Okay? So don't worry about it. It's just that if you are a male student between the ages of 18 and 25, if you do not register for Selective Service, you will not be able to get any federal financial aid from the government. That's the law. Okay? And one more caution, when you enter your name, the first thing they ask is they ask for your full legal name when you have completed the FAFSA. You have to use the name that's on your Social Security card. I know that, like when I immigrated to the United States here, I have my legal name. However, when I go to school, I have an English name, which is Lily. Well, guess what? When you apply for financial aid, one of the things they have to do is they have to confirm you are either a U.S. citizen So the only way to confirm is through the Social Security Administration. So if I apply for financial aid and I use the word Lily, well, the word Lily is not on my Social Security card. So they're not able to confirm my status. So there are issues related to that if you're not confirmed. The reason they still have the 2012-2013 button there is because for schools that are in the quarter system, like most UCs, we are in the quarter system, we have students who are transferring next quarter. So they can still apply for financial aid for spring quarter. That's why the government's not able to take off the FAFSA for this year. So when you go in, just be sure to click 2013-14 and not the 2012-13, okay? Okay, I talked about the selective service here. If you're a student and you're between the ages of 18 and 25, how do you register for selective service? It's part of the FAFSA. Well, the FAFSA will ask, are you registered for selective service? Of course, you say no, and then you're given a chance to register yourself through the FAFSA. There's no extra step you need to take. Well, what happens if you're under 18? Some students here are only 17 or just 16 years old. What you can do is leave it blank. You don't have to do anything. Guess why? Because financial aid is an annual process. Each year that you're in college, if you want financial aid, you have to reapply. So it's not like you apply for financial aid once and it's good for the 4 years of your college education. Next year you have to reapply. Even if this year you don't have to register yourself because you are 17, you're not yet 18. Next year when you apply for financial aid, you have to register yourself. Or else the government will not give you any federal financial aid. So you really have two options. One, if you're under 18,